They said, you don't just look at American Gothic, you feel it. And god damn it, they were right. You step into the frame, and suddenly the world seems a little colder, a little more rigid. There's this man, eyes like steel, standing next to a woman whose expression might as well be carved from stone. They're not smiling, not even pretending to be warm. Just a quiet, unnerving stare that seems to pierce right through you. And then there's that pitchfork, their shared weapon, their shared burden, their shared life. It's as if this single object, so humble yet so sharp, holds together everything they are. The farmhouse behind them, unassuming, almost oppressive in its stillness, as though it too is a silent observer, trapping them in a moment of stark rural reality. This is American Gothic, Grant Wood's 1930 masterpiece, a piece so ingrained in the American consciousness that it's almost impossible to think about the nation without it popping into mind. But why does it resonate so deeply? Why is it so beloved, so iconic, so unforgettable? To answer that question, we have to look beyond the surface. However, before we get too deep into the symbolism or dive headfirst into the history, let's take a moment to actually look at this painting. No distractions, no cultural context, just the image itself. A man stands, his grip tight on a pitchfork, next to a woman. It's not immediately obvious, but she is his daughter, one of the most well-known details about this piece. They both look at us with an unsettling intensity. No smiles, no warmth. The farmhouse behind them is almost sterile in its simplicity, save for that strangely arched window, which almost feels like it's watching us too. At first glance, the scene seems straightforward. A farmer and his daughter posing in front of their home. It's simple, almost brutally so, and yet it feels like there's more lurking beneath the surface. Why then is the composition so iconic? What makes it stick? Well, to begin understanding, we've got to stop seeing it through the lens of all the parodies and pop culture references that have swarmed around it over the years. I get it, we've all seen the memes, the countless remakes. But imagine for a second this was the first time you saw it. No context, no prior knowledge. There's a certain eeriness to it, isn't there? Something about the way the figures are posed, so stiff and deliberate, makes it feel unnatural. Like a moment frozen in time, almost too perfect, too staged. It's as though they've been plucked from reality, placed into this frame for the sole purpose of looking at us. That disconnection, it's unsettling. The more you look at it, the more you realise that this is not just a farm family portrait. It's something else entirely. Something more ominous. And you realise it just when you look at the woman who stands behind her father, avoiding eye contact, almost as if she's trying to escape the tension between them. It's her father who, at least to many, is the true source of the unease in this painting. His stern face, while cold, isn't necessarily creepy on its own, but there's something in the way he presents himself that feels belligerent. He stands tall, a rigid posture with that pitchfork firmly grasped in his hands, staring down at us like he's daring us to step any closer. It's not just his expression, but his whole demeanour. It's as if he's challenging us, or maybe even warning us. This man isn't just protecting his farm, his property. He's guarding his daughter as though she's one of his possessions. And while the straightforwardness of this image suggests a simple rural family portrait, there's an unsettling possibility beneath the surface. Maybe he's not just protecting what's his. Maybe he's hiding something. What's behind the mysterious arched window of the farmhouse? Is it just the house, or is it a dark secret waiting to be uncovered? The daughter's a passive bystander. Or is she? Perhaps she knows more than she lets on. Perhaps she's seen things that this man's stern gaze is trying to keep locked away. The tension in this painting is not only in what is shown, but in what remains hidden. It's guarded fiercely by a man standing in front of his daughter holding that pitchfork as if to say, "This is mine, you can't have it." But still, this unease doesn't fully explain the painting's widespread popularity. To understand its deeper resonance, we need to consider the journey that led Grant Wood to create this iconic piece. Art historian H.W. Jansen once pointed out that Wood's artistic breakthrough didn't come until he found inspiration in Europe, specifically in the works of the old masters from Flanders and Germany. What struck him about their work was their ability to capture their immediate surroundings with a sense of realism and emotional depth. Wood took this lesson and brought it back home, turning it into a style that felt uniquely American. Wood's breakthrough came when he embraced a simple yet powerful idea. He looked around him, at the world that was right in front of him, and found inspiration in it. Much like the old masters of Flanders and Germany, who captured the depth and reality of their immediate surroundings, Wood took the essence of the American heartland and made it the canvas for his art. He didn't need grand historical allegories or classical references. His subject was the very life he knew, the very landscape that surrounded him. In fact, this focus on his own environment was what made Wood's style so distinctively American. According to H.R. Jansen, Wood's sudden rise to fame wasn't just about talent, it was about how he, like those European masters, tapped into something deeply local, something that felt uniquely of this place. It was this connection to the land, to the people, that struck a chord with audiences. When speaking about American Gothic, Wood described the house in the painting as suggestive of Middle West civilization. The house, made of simple materials, often described as cardboard frame, became a symbol of the American Midwest, and its Gothic-style window gave a nod to the title itself, hinting at historical influence while still remaining entirely grounded in the present. As for the figures in the painting, Wood didn't try to capture specific individuals. He created what he called American Gothic people, a reflection of the rural spirit he knew so well. But the question that remains unanswered is whether Wood saw them as genuine, sincere representations of his community, or as exaggerated figures, almost caricatured for effect. Some locals, recognising themselves in the characters, were offended by what they perceived as an attack. Meanwhile, urbanites found it funny, perhaps a bit too easy in its portrayal of rural life. R. Tripp Evans, an art history professor and no relation to F. Murray Abraham, suggested that the debate surrounding American Gothic in Wood's day wasn't so much about whether it was a satire, but rather whether it represented a sincere and patriotic reflection of American values. This duality, the tension between homage and parody, was what fueled the painting's widespread fascination and made it such a touchstone for American identity. Because what is America, if not homage and parody? The Art Institute of Chicago lauded Wood for being a true American artist, with an original viewpoint without a vestige or foreign influence. They were adamant that American Gothic could have been painted in no other country, firmly placing it within the framework of American exceptionalism. Even suspect art critic C.J. Bulliet recognised the piece's technical mastery, but what struck him even more was its unmistakably American quality, underlined in bold and all caps, bro. The painting became not just a work of art, but a cultural symbol, one that contrasted the corn-fed, hard-working Midwest with the supposed anemic East, starving under the weight of foreign influence. In this sense, American Gothic wasn't just a snapshot of rural life. It was a defiant statement, a proclamation that America, in its raw, unrefined essence, had something to say on the world stage. Wood's work came to symbolise a kind of artistic independence, one that pushed back against the growing influence of European modernism, particularly the cosmopolitan energy emerging from New York. This sentiment is echoed in a New Yorker quote that says, "He stands for an independent American art against the colonialism and the cosmopolitanism of New York." What's important here is how American Gothic tapped into a sense of nationalism, which helped it gain an iconic status almost overnight. At the time, America was deeply divided, as it always is. Rural America was still rooted in tradition, while urban areas, particularly New York, were becoming melting pots of multiculturalism. This urban art scene was heavily influenced by European modern art, which was often abstract and experimental. In the 1930s, the tension between these two cultural worlds was palpable. America, as a young country, was still struggling to define its own artistic identity, one that could stand on its own against the European giants. However, that identity didn't truly solidify until after World War II, when the US gained both political and cultural dominance. And it was with the rise of abstract expressionism that America began to carve out a unique artistic presence on the global stage. But before this cultural shift, the prevailing thought was that true American art could only come from an unspoilt source, the rural heartland, far removed from the foreign influences that were permeating urban centres. This is where American Gothic fits into the larger picture. The myth of Grant Wood as the pure American artist was born. His rural upbringing in Iowa, combined with his devotion to hard work and traditional values, became the idealized narrative of the self-made American artist. In this myth, Wood's style was not shaped by external influences, but by the land he came from and the values he embodied. American Gothic was more than just a painting. It was a visual representation of America's desire for a cultural identity that wasn't tainted by foreign influence. But the idea of creating truly pure art, untouched by outside forces, is an impossible ideal. Even modern European art, with all its innovation, was shaped by influences from as far afield as Japan and the Pacific. As we saw earlier, Wood's own journey to Europe and exposure to the works of the Old Masters and modern movements inevitably played a role in shaping American Gothic. The painting itself, in many ways, reflects the tension between America's desire for authenticity and the reality that all art is influenced, in some way, by the world around it. The title of the painting itself, American Gothic, is a perfect encapsulation of this myth-making process. The term Gothic adds a layer of mystery and drama, reinforcing the idea that this was an art form that was both distinctively American and inherently different from anything seen before. This was America's first modern painting that, in its myth, was untouched by foreign influence. A painting that could stand as a symbol of national pride and artistic independence. But even as American Gothic became a symbol of idealised, pure American vision, it wasn't entirely free from the complexities of its time. America, in its vulnerability and desire for validation, feared losing its authenticity if it wasn't entirely self-contained. Enter Grant Wood, the rural American artist who, through sheer force of will and creativity, crafted a painting that seemed to capture the essence of this mythologically untarnished America. In the end, American Gothic wasn't just a work of art, it was a carefully constructed myth, a statement about the role of art in the shaping of a national identity. Wood's work resonated because it offered an image of America that felt true to its roots, even if the image was built on a foundation of myth and was possibly ugly. And that's why American Gothic endures today as one of the most iconic pieces in American art history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw here, please tap the like button and subscribe to our channel for more of art's wonders.